Welcome back to Black News Tonight. As the war against critical race theory continues, we have had numerous conservative voices on this show, from media pundits to lawmakers. And whenever I asked them to name a critical race theory, they either didn't name anybody, or they named somebody irrelevant, or they grossly misrepresented the people that they named. So tonight, we're going to talk a little bit about a name that is essential to critical race theory. That name is Derrick Bell. In a recent New Yorker essay, The Man Behind Critical Race Theory, that's the name of it, the writer Jelani Cobb profiles the work and legacy of Derrick Bell. He writes, as an attorney, Derrick Bell worked on many civil rights cases, but his doubts about their impact launched a groundbreaking school of thought. Joining me now is William Jelani Cobb. He's a staff writer at The New Yorker. He's also a professor at Columbia Journalism School. And unlike many of those guests who came on, he actually has expertise and knowledge in these areas. He's read the books that he's going to cite. He knows things. It's a pleasure to have you on, sir.
Thank you.
Look, you talk about Bell's doubts about the efficacy of civil rights cases as he details in his article, Serving Two Masters. What were the doubts that he had, and how did they propel the development of critical race theory?
So first, I'll start by saying that Derrick Bell was a tremendously principled man, and he was trying to be intellectually honest. He spent, the early part of his life as a civil rights attorney, risking his life, literally risking his life, to fight desegregation cases in Mississippi. And it was in retrospect, when he began assessing the impact of these cases that have shown up in history books, very many of them, been chronicled as, great achievements of the 20th century. And he began looking at the actual yield and saying something is amiss. Brown versus Board of Education was in 1954. In 1974, the schools were still segregated. When you looked at the anti-discrimination legislation, it had failed to ameliorate Black people's subordinate position in society. And so it was his search for answers for how racism was able to reassert itself in the face of attempted reforms that led to the creation of what people called critical race theory.
I'm glad you give that kind of genealogy of critical race theory, because I've had these debates with everyone from Christopher Rufo to James Lindsay and others who have attempted to say that there is a direct line from, neo-Marxism, Frankfurt School theorists, communist manifestos directly to critical race theory, and they seem to leave out or maybe even ignore some of the real sort of direct genealogical roots. Why do you think that is?
Because they're dishonest. I think that this is politically motivated. I'm sorry, sirens in the background. I'm in New York, so it happens. But they are not being intellectually honest about this. And what they've done is simply root through people's footnotes and see anyone that is footnoted. And you and I both know this, having written scholarly work, that you cite all kinds of things in the course of making an argument. It doesn't mean that you're actually a proponent of the ideas that you're citing. Sometimes you're citing something to contrast it with what you're actually arguing. So they've just rooted through, an index, a works cited page or bibliography, and said that any name that's in there is thereby a contributing element of critical race theory, which couldn't be farther than the truth. The first is just the stupidity of associating critical race theory with Marxism, precisely because critical race theory came about because the other legal movements that were, prominent at the time, like critical legal theory, had not properly grappled with race. It had grappled with class far more formatively than it had with race. And so they were working in contrast to many of the Marxist left people. And so it's silly, it's ridiculous.
Absolutely. I want to quote from your essay here regarding the recent GOP attacks on CRT. You write, "In all the conservative outrage and reaction to CRT is an unwitting validation of the very argument that Bell made. Another irony is that CRT has become a fixation of conservatives, despite the fact that some of its sharpest critiques were directed at the ultimate failings of liberalism." Tell me a little bit more about that. I think that's important because, again, when you read critical race theory, it's very clear that they have a critique of liberalism. They have a critique of liberal race theory, liberal colorblind theory. I mean, they seem to miss the point here. Could you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so they are really looking at, and the benchmark achievements of the civil rights era are a product of, 60s liberalism or Cold War era liberalism. And Derrick Bell was willing to look at that and see where its deficits were. But because conservatives were not part of that conversation in any formative way, they were opposing the things that came about. And so Derrick Bell was really positioning himself to the left of the movement itself, and saying, and for that matter, he was also critical of Thurgood Marshall implicitly. The arguments that Thurgood Marshall had made in Brown versus Board of Education, and so they were overwhelmingly liberal solutions to the problems of racism. And conservatives were not part of that conversation. And so when Bell begins to look at the failings, he's talking about where liberalism came up short. That's why the title of this piece, in the New Yorker, was "The Limits of Liberalism," not the failings of conservatism. Very little to say on the subject, actually.
Interestingly enough, if the world were to take Derrick Bell's writing, his arguments more seriously, how would we benefit?
Well, first, we would have immediately benefited by understanding. Derrick Bell told me this directly, which I cited an email that he sent me before Barack Obama became president, that it could potentially unleash the kinds of forces that we've seen previously in our history. After emancipation and after Reconstruction, where the backlash forces arose to essentially re-enslave Black people. After the Civil Rights Movement, we saw the forces of reaction that sought to undo all the progress that had been made. And he looked at the election of Barack Obama and said that the same thing was likely to happen. And we would have been wiser to go into this with our eyes open, knowing that we might very well lose the Voting Rights Act. It doesn't mean that we vote differently or that we do anything differently, but we prepare in advance, knowing that this is going to be something that could happen. We also look at, what can be done. When he says that racism is a permanent feature of American society, he's not being pessimistic. In his viewpoint, he's being a realist. He was saying, so if we're not looking at the short-term elimination of racism, what are the effects? What are the means by which we can manage this chronic ailment? And how do we approach it? What kinds of policies do we look at as opposed to the things that we looked at in the 1950s, 1960s? Maybe we need to strategize differently in approaching this. And those are the things that Derrick Bell was really talking about.
Well, before you go, I've heard conservatives say that there's something too deterministic about critical race theory. If you begin from a place of saying that racism is an intractable feature of America, that racism ain't going nowhere, does that undermine our ability to fight for change and justice? Is there a way that doesn't allow for the possibility that we can radically transform things in ways that aren't anticipatable or foreseeable?
No, I think it's the opposite, actually. It means that we have to be that much better, that we have to be that much more strategic. I don't think that the idea is that these things are futile. Like, at this moment, we have thousands of dedicated researchers trying to cure cancer, in this country. No one has done it yet. But does that mean that all the work that's been done thus far is for naught? No, it doesn't. It just means that you have a very wily and very formidable foe. And you look at that, you take a different approach to fighting that battle than you do for something that could be easily vanquished. And the best argument in defense of Derrick Bell's point when he says that racism is a permanent feature of American society is simply the question, when in the history of this country, in the history of this place as a colony, as a set of colonies, or in the history of it as a country, have we ever been without racism? We never have been. And so I think that is the strongest point in Mr. Bell's argument.
I think you might be right there. William Jelani Cobb, as always, a pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you so much for your informative discussion. We're looking forward to your book that's coming out in 2 weeks. We'll be sure to have you back on to talk about that too. Everybody, join the conversation. We want to hear from you. Head over to our BNC Instagram and Twitter pages. Let us know how you feel. Also, visit the website, bnc.tv, and subscribe to our YouTube page. That way you can check out clips from the show.